The trendsetter and one of the earliest kings of lighterweight divisions, who proved that the best action doesn't always go down in the heavyweight class. The 1981 Fighter of the Year award winner and a true force to be reckoned with coming out of the state of Maryland. We're of course talking about Sugar Ray Leonard. This prolific personality's fighting years are well remembered for their skillful displays of controlled ferocity and aggression. Through his stage name, a living homage to an equally energetic and aggressive boxer like himself. Except Leonard proved that it could be done in the lighter weight classes and that it could draw the same numbers in revenue as the heavyweight fights. With his career ending in the 1990s after a long and successful run as a two-belt welterweight and middleweight champion, it's time to look back on his impressive career. But just how good was he? And what's been his influence on boxing today? We'll dissect it now. Early career. Sugar Ray Leonard probably boasts one of the most extensive and intense amateur boxing records of any boxer ever in history. He started boxing at the age of 14 and soon entered competition. As an amateur, he compiled an impressive record, winning 145 of 150 bouts. His competition victories and championship wins speak for themselves, amassing at least 9 championship trophies from 1973 to 1975. Of course, he also famously defeated all of his opponents and maintained a domineering streak during the 1976 Summer Olympics in Canada. The legend and gravitas of the new boxing savant of the United States, who could carry the torch forward, was established upon the seizing of the gold medal in Canada, and he was electrifying to watch. This was the early to mid-1970s, and therefore the age of none other than Muhammad Ali in the heavyweight division. It's where all the inspiration was, and those in the lighter weight classes were simply getting started in a sense. Leonard developed a lightning-fast fighting style, complete with agile and elegant footwork alongside strong stamina. For a good while after he began his professional career in 1977, he was at first glance an unassuming young boy. But his almost sickly physique and low weight proved any casual fan wrong, who was used to muscular heavyweights doing their work. The speed and agility he brought forward soon began to be paired with deadly punching accuracy. It began with Benny DeBarros being knocked out cold in July of 1977. From then on, brutal knockouts and beatdowns commenced. Randy Milton and Dick Eklund faced his onslaught in the unfriendliest terms in 1978, with each getting knocked down thrice in their respective matches against Sugar Ray Leonard. With a no less impressive victory against Floyd Mayweather Sr., Leonard soon entered his prime, with his trademark speed and stamina honed to perfection. Prime. With the beginning of his entry into 12 and 15-round fights from 1979 onwards, Leonard came to face more dangerous opponents. Some of them would prove to give a hard time in the ring, such as Wilfred Benitez, who he had to outplay carefully into a TKO at the very last round in order to win the WBC World Welterweight belt. He had become more of an excellent strategist and tactician within the ring, having studied his opponents as much as possible beforehand in order to divine the best possible approach to guide the match into a win on his own terms. He preferred not to go toe-to-toe, however, and this turned out to be a weakness that would bite him when he faced power punchers. As such, he lost his match against Roberto Duran, the Panamanian famous boxer for boasting hands of stone. And yet, it must also be noted that Leonard rebounded, taking his adaptability to the next level, shockingly knocking out Duran in the rematch in the 8th round. This victory cemented his legend and really did put him on top of the world in the post-Muhammad Ali era. The 1980s were his time as the king of the welterweight division. He defeated Ayub Khalil in 1981 to add to the WBA belt via a stunning 9th round KO victory. Both belts were defended spectacularly against Thomas Hearns and Bruce Finch in quick successive order, with the impressive defense against Hearns earning him the 1981 Fighter of the Year award from Ring Magazine. His fight cadence, however, would slow down after 1982, with the following match after that taking place only in 1984 against Kevin Howard. This was because of an eye injury following his 1981 and 1982 bouts that could not be recovered in time. But he came back in 1984 to beat Kevin Howard down in a way that few expected. But his eye injury came back to haunt him soon afterwards. This made it necessary for him to stay away from fighting all the way until 1987, when he fought Marvin Hagler in what was in many ways his most intense test since fighting Roberto Duran in 1980. Hagler made sure to punish him by taking advantage of his weakness and going toe-to-toe, but he turned the tables expertly to deliver accurate shots at Hagler's face and body to edge out a points win. It has since gone down as one of the most iconic boxing matches of all time, highlighting the dichotomy between the different fighting styles of both of them. His third match against Roberto Duran in 1989 would be his last hurrah, defeating his nemesis again via unanimous decision. The weight of his injuries and personal struggles bore down heavily, as evidenced by his last 2 matches taking place in 1991 and 1997. While both were against quality opponents, it was clearly time to retire. Strengths. To this day, Leonard is considered a role model and a masterpiece worker of versatility as a fighter. He sped around the ring like Sonic, and it was the hardest thing in the world to land a punch on him. For most fighters, he was simply untouchable, and the crowd never missed a chance to enjoy watching him fly. He quickly became adept at using his speed to outmaneuver his opponents, and chuckling in his deceptively powerful and accurate punches for a few cycles, and then comfortably claiming his victory. Something else that played a big role in helping Leonard along the way is the fact that his footwork was lightning fast and elegant. This made taking your attention off Leonard by any means dangerous, as his lightning fast speed made it impossible to predict whether he would pivot, step to the side, or switch stance to deliver an unseen punch. Yes, he's one of those boxers who have the rare ability to fight effectively from either stance, southpaw or orthodox. Such a thing isn't seen every day, or with any regularity in the sport, especially when it works to land powerful punches that can knock his opponents out when the time was right. His physique was no joke. Even if he appeared skinny and frail in the eyes of some, he could pack a scary amount of energy and power in his fists, resulting in nasty mid-motion knockout hits that have seriously messed his opponents up. The only way to do it as good as Leonard was to become a master of timing, which is something he was, through and through. His sharp combination punching was another strength. His technical fighting style worked, as if it were a machine built in lockstep, to only work when his strengths are able to complement one another. Weaknesses. As far as weaknesses of his fighting game are concerned, there isn't all that much to say, other than that his stamina-heavy fighting style soon led him to slowing down to the point where he could not fight. This point was reached earlier than expected, as his 1989 fight against Roberto Duran would prove to be his last before an unfortunate showing in 1991 versus Terry Norris after he retired. He came back in 1997 to fight Hector Camacho and was knocked out in the 5th round. His shelf life as a professional boxer came to an end within a decade. Other than that, Leonard played the mental game well, almost to a fault. He was known to taunt his opponents. Taken too far, it could be said that at times, he grew to underestimate his opponents and overestimate himself, especially when his opponents remained stoic. This was of course the legacy of the previous era's King Sugar Ray Robinson, and undoubtedly Muhammad Ali, as testified by Leonard himself. It was a toxic combination if it happened as he was about to face power punchers. It was obvious that Leonard's style was more suited to outboxing his opponents with his speed and footwork. Very clearly, he struggled against more powerful and naturally larger boxers, as seen in his first bout with Roberto Duran and then Marvin Hagler. The danger compounded further if the power puncher was agile and fast. Leonard's style relied heavily on maintaining distance and using his speed to outbox his opponents. If an opponent could close the distance and force Leonard into a slugfest, it put him in the danger zone, so to speak. This was most evidently seen in his bout with Marvin Hagler despite the win, but he wouldn't escape the loss at the hands of Terry Norris. Eventually, the stress upon his body that came by way of his fighting style, along with substance abuse, prevented the 1990s from being added to his professional boxing career. He also found himself having a hard time dealing with the spotlight. Being one of the most exciting boxers to watch in the 1970s and 1980s drew eyes that he was not comfortable with at all. It's hard to surmise what exactly could have been if he were able to continue boxing in top shape for another 10 years. But no one can deny that from 1978 to 1988, he proved that a boxer can be the most versatile in his sport compared similarly to other athletes. There can be no doubt that during his years of reign, Sugar Ray Leonard was a nigh insurmountable peak and a true force to be reckoned with. He was a boxer that could come up with increasingly creative ways to strike you when you least expected it, and in the process, score impressive knockout victories. The fact that he could do it without much raw strength emanating from his body was another testament to his skills, and he managed to hold his own against his most potent opponents, who were some of the most dangerous power punchers of the era. Sugar Ray Leonard's legacy as a technically impressive, but also a flamboyant and flashy fighter to be feared due to his power output has continued to inspire many among the lighter weight categories. He was truly a worthy pioneer. But what do you think? Do you agree with this assessment? Are there things that we've missed? Comment down below. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. We'll see you again when the dust settles on the canvas.